Ovoke caught her husband kissing another woman's neck in her own kitchen, and the woman was wearing her apron. She stood in the doorway with groceries in both hands, keys still warm in her fingers, watching Festus pull back slowly, not from guilt, but from inconvenience, like she had interrupted a meeting. The woman, Evie, did not even turn around. She just stirred the pot, Ovoke's pot, on Ovoke's stove, in Ovoke's kitchen. And Festus looked at his wife and said, "You are back early." That was 18 months into their marriage. But this story does not start there. It starts at the wedding, where everything still smelled like promise. The day Ovoke married Festus Erore, the whole of Wari came out to celebrate. The compound was draped in gold and deep burgundy. Urhobo praise singers circled the couple twice before the vows. Ovoke wore a dress she had designed herself, structured at the waist, flowing at the hem, the kind of dress that made women stop mid-conversation. Festus held her hand at the altar and his voice broke on the word always. She cried, he cried. Even Caro, who had sworn she would not cry, pressed her knuckle to the corner of her eye and turned away. Auntie Rere, seated at table 3 with a full plate and a full opinion, leaned to the woman beside her and said, "Women who pray like Mama Blessing make the sweetest mothers-in-law. That woman has the Spirit of God on her." The woman beside her nodded. Nobody disagreed. Mama Blessing sat at the high table, in the cream and gold lace iro and buba, her jelly tall and precise, her hands folded like a woman who had already won. Ovoke should have looked closer at those folded hands. The first 3 days of marriage were everything. Festus brought her coffee before she woke. She traced the scar on his jaw while he slept and thought, "This man is mine." On the 3rd morning, she woke before him and made akpu and ofe onogbu from scratch, the way his mother had taught him to love it, because she wanted him to feel held. He walked into the kitchen, smelt the soup, and kissed her so slowly she forgot what she was stirring. He pressed her against the counter, and she laughed into his chest and thought, this is what they meant. This is what they all meant. 11 days after the wedding, Mama Blessing arrived. No call, no text. Just a knock at 7 a.m. and there she was. Small bag in one hand, large authority in the other. Eyes already moving around the sitting room before Ovoke had fully opened the door. "Mama," Festus said, surprised but smiling, because he was always smiling for his mother. He hugged her, and she held him a bit longer than a greeting required. Ovoke stood in her wrapper and said, "Welcome, Mama," and meant it. She made tea. She brought biscuits. She sat across from her mother-in-law and asked about the journey from Sapele, and felt genuinely that this could be good. That afternoon, Festus brought the car around. He was taking them both to the market. Mama Blessing needed a few things, and Ovoke had offered to help carry. Ovoke walked to the front passenger door and reached for the handle. "The front seat is for me." Mama Blessing had not raised her voice. She had simply stated a fact the way one states that water is wet. She moved past Ovoke and settled herself into the passenger seat, adjusted the mirror, folded her hands in her lap. Ovoke stood at the open door, hand still on the handle, and looked at Festus over the roof of the car. Festus was already getting into the driver's seat. "Enter the back, Ovoke. She's my mother." If you are watching this video and you have ever been made to feel small in your home, comment below and let us know where you are watching from. And before we go further, if you are new here, subscribe now and turn on notifications. This story is going to shake you. Ovoke got into the back seat. She put on her seatbelt. She looked out the window as the car pulled into traffic. She did not speak. She did not cry. She was too confused for either. She had been a wife for 11 days. She had her own home, her own kitchen, her own husband. She was 27 years old and she was sitting in the back seat of a car she cooked and cleaned and prayed for, and nobody in the front had thought to apologize. She told herself it was once. She told herself Mama Blessing had come a long way. She told herself marriage required grace. By the 6th week, she had told herself these things so many times they had stopped making meaning. Mama Blessing came 3-4 times a week, always unannounced, always with an opinion. She rearranged Ovoke's kitchen the third visit, moved the pots, shifted the condiment shelf, placed her own oseoji on the counter like she was staking a flag. She lifted lids and set them down with silence that said everything. She redirected Festus mid-sentence without blinking. And every time they entered that car, the routine was the same. Mama Blessing to the front, Ovoke to the back, Festus behind the wheel explaining nothing. One evening, Ovoke finally spoke. They were returning from a family friend's birthday. Mama Blessing had already gone inside. Ovoke stood by the car in the dark and said, quietly, Festus, I am your wife. Why do I always have to sit in the back? Festus turned to her. He looked genuinely confused, the way a man looks when he has never had to think about something because it has always been someone else's problem to carry. He is my mother, he said. She carried me for 9 months. Is it the front seat that will kill you? Ovoke looked at her husband's face in the dark. This face she had kissed at the altar, this jaw she had traced with her fingers, this man who cried when he said always, and she felt something she could not name. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter, something that if it were left alone long enough would become a decision. She went inside, she changed her clothes, she opened her laptop and worked on a new fabric pattern until 2 a.m. She did not know yet that she was already building her exit stitch by stitch. Their first wedding anniversary fell on a Thursday. Ovoke had booked a restaurant 6 weeks in advance, a private table, a set menu, the kind of evening that says we are choosing each other again. She wore the emerald dress she had been saving. She put on the perfume Festus loved. She lit 2 candles on the dining table to start the night before they left. Festus came home in casual clothes. Mama needs to attend Cousin Ejowa's naming ceremony tonight. I have to take her. Ovoke stood in the emerald dress with the candles burning behind her. She did not shout. She did not throw anything. She looked at her husband and in a voice so steady it frightened her, she said, "It is our anniversary, Festus. I know, I'm sorry. Next week we'll do it properly." He was already picking up his car keys. He kissed her cheek, quickly, the way you kiss a door handle, and he was gone. Ovoke stood there for a full minute. Then she walked to the kitchen. She took the jollof rice from the pot. She sat alone at the table she had set for 2 in her emerald dress with her candles, and she ate. When Carol called at 9 p.m. and asked how the anniversary dinner went, Ovoke opened her mouth to say fine, and instead she sat down on the kitchen floor and cried till her chest hurt. 3 weeks after that, Mama Blessing arrived while Ovoke was making jollof rice for a Sunday afternoon. The kitchen smelled of tomatoes and bay leaves. Ovoke was in her element. Mama Blessing walked in, lifted the pot lid, sniffed and set it back down. This is not how Festus likes it. I've been cooking for him for a year, Mama. He always says, what a man says and what a man knows are different things. Mama Blessing moved to the stove, picked up the spoon from Ovoke's hand gently, calmly, as if this were completely normal, and began to stir. Add more crayfish and lower the heat. You are burning the bottom. Ovoke stepped back. She watched another woman cook in her kitchen with her ingredients on her stove for her husband. Her hands hung at her sides. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were dry because she had made a decision somewhere between the anniversary dinner and this moment. She would not cry in this kitchen again. That night, she stayed up late on her laptop. She registered the business name she had been sitting on for 2 years, Utire Fabrics. Her full name on the registration, her money, her dream. She pressed submit and felt something shift inside her chest. Something that had been pressed down for months, finally straightening up. If this story is speaking to you right now, like this video, drop a comment and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because Ovoke's story is far from over. And what happens next changes everything. It was 18 months into the marriage when Ovoke came home early from a fabric sourcing trip to find Festus in the kitchen with Ivy. She stood in the doorway with her bags and watched him pull back slowly, and the woman in her apron did not turn around, and Festus said, "You're back early." And that was when Ovoke understood that the front seat was never just about the car. She set her bags down. She walked to the bedroom, she changed her clothes, she came back to the kitchen, picked up her car keys, and left without a word. She drove to Carol's apartment. She sat in Carol's living room with a cup of tea she did not drink and told her everything. Carol said nothing for a while. Then, Ovoke, how long have you been sitting in the back seat of your own marriage? Ovoke looked at her hands. They were still shaking. Too long, she said. Too long. She did not go home that night. She did not go home for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, Festus called every single day. The first call was short and defensive. The second was apologetic. By the 5th day, he was pleading. By the 8th day, he was saying things she had needed to hear for a year. That he had failed her, that his mother's approval had become an addiction, that he had confused devotion with loyalty and lost his wife in the process. Ovoke listened to every call. She said very little. She was not punishing him. She was not playing games. She was simply, finally, taking up space. In Carol's guest room, in her grief, in her own reflection. She launched Otire Fabrics that second week. Posted 3 designs. The response was immediate. Women shared the page. Orders came in before the weekend. Her phone buzzed with notifications, and for the first time in 18 months, she felt like herself. Not Festus's wife, not Mama Blessing's inconvenience, not the woman in the back seat. Just Ovoke, just herself. Her manager called midweek. Her output during those 18 months, steady, focused, relentless despite everything she was carrying at home, had been noticed. Effective immediately, a promotion, 60% salary increase. Carol opened palm wine at 11 a.m. and called it champagne. Ovoke laughed, really laughed, the kind of laugh that surprises you from the inside. She went back home at the start of the 3rd week, not because Festus had asked enough times, not because she was afraid, because she had decided. She sat him down at the dining table. No Mama Blessing, no audience, and she spoke. We go to counseling every week, non-negotiable. My business runs without interference from anyone in this house. I will not be spoken over, moved aside, or placed in the back seat of my own life again. If those terms do not work for you, Festus, then I need you to tell me now so we can both stop wasting time. Festus looked at his wife. She saw her, maybe for the first time since the wedding. He nodded. They started counseling that same week. 14 months later, Ovoke pulled into the compound in a brand new car. Her name on the papers, her savings, her decision. She stepped out with her Otire Fabrics tote on one shoulder, her natural hair pinned up, sunglasses on, the afternoon light catching her just right. Mama Blessing was at the gate. She had come, as always, unannounced. She looked at the car. She looked at Ovoke standing beside it. Something passed across her face. Not warmth exactly, but something adjacent to recognition. Something that said, I see you now. She made a sound low in her throat. She walked inside. Ovoke stood by her car for a moment. She did not need more. She did not need much. She got into the driver's seat, her seat in her car, in her life, and she sat there in the quiet of the compound and breathed. She had spent 2 years being moved from one seat to another in her own marriage. She had been kissed at altars and forgotten at anniversaries. She had been handed apologies like they were favors. She had watched another woman cook her food and sit in her seat and wear her apron. And she had built something anyway. Something that was hers, something nobody could lift the lid on. The car eased forward. Ovoke drove. If this story moved you, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they deserve the front seat. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country below. We want to hear from you.